So, welcome to the advanced topic that we will be covering in today's session, that is object oriented programming, and we will touch upon the classes, objects, self, init, constructor. It is the most important concept within the Python, and it is highly useful when you are working on the actuarial modeling side. And basically, when you want to create any kind of real life application, or let's say in future when you want to shift from the licensed softwares such as any kind of softwares, let me not name it, but you want to switch to the open source means like Python, so that your licensing cost will be reduced drastically. So you must have the knowledge of object oriented programming, because ultimately you are going to use this to create any kind of concept that you want. Okay, so what exactly is this object oriented programming? So let's begin. So first question is, what is this OOP, object oriented programming? So technically, loosely speaking, it is like a different style of writing a code. Different style of writing a code. So let's say if I say I will create a list by the name L 1 2 3. Pretty simple. If I type L dot upper, now you see it gives me an error. I mean, we all know that, right? This upper method is the functionality of the strings. Now you see what is written over here. List object has no attribute upper. Makes sense? We all know that. But focus on this line over there, that there is an error in the attribute. List object, this list is an object. This L is an object, which is a list. List object has no attribute upper. Makes sense? Let's say, let's take some more examples. I will create a city is equal to Delhi. Okay, and I will type city dot append with a. Again, it gives me an error, because we all know that append function is used in case of a list, right? String object, this city is a object which is string, has no attribute append. We all know that, right? So up to this point it is clear, but question is, what is this object? What exactly is object? Just for your information, in Python everything is an object. Okay, in Python everything is an object. So you see, like, what is OOP? As a programmer, technically you can make your own data types. You are not just limited to the string, list, tuples, set, dictionary, something that we have covered so far. In reality, you can create even your own data types, and then it will be very useful when you want to create a real life application. Like in this video, we will cover about how to create the ATM, let's say. Okay, and then in our next two videos we will cover two projects. One is based on the present value calculator, and the another project will be based on the cash flow modeling and the sensitivity testing that we will do. Okay, and definitely, yes, you can replace your traditional actuarial softwares and financial softwares, whatever. Okay, so technically the OOP is based on six major concepts. That is class that we will cover, objects. So these two something we will cover in our this Python course, and there are some more: encapsulation and inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction. But the major role is being played by the first two, these class and objects. So once you are aware about this, you are good to go. Okay, so in our this Python series we will cover the classes and these objects. Makes sense? So as I said, let's start with the class now. So what is this class? Okay, in Python everything is an object, but an object will belong to a specific class. For example, I am an object, I am of a male category, so I am from a male class. If I, let's say I am from India, so the India is a class and I belong within the India, so I am an object. Or let's say, let's take the example of a car. So car is a class, and let's name any brand, let's say Lamborghini. So Lamborghini is an object. Okay, car is a class and Lamborghini is an object. Car is a class, Maruti Suzuki is an object. So now I think it is clear. In terms of actuarial, let's say annuities is a class and variable annuity is an object. Now it is super sorted, right? So if I type, a is equal to 2. So technically, we all know that, that a is an integer. So this integer is a class, but this a is an object which is of the integer class. Make sense? A is an object which belongs to the integer class. Okay, so let's try to create one more example. Let's say this L is equal to 1 2 3. So this L is an object which belongs to the list class. Okay, so technically object is an instance of a class. Basically what it is saying is that object technically made out of a class. Okay, that is what it means. Instance means in normal terms an example. Object is one of the examples of the class. Let's dig deep down into this class. So technically, class is it's like a blueprint of how an object will behave. So there will be like two things in this class. Two things. It is highly important, guys. One is the attribute. Attribute means the descriptions of that class, description of that object. For example, the color of car, the brand of car, and another thing is the methods, which is like the activity of an object. For example, the mileage of my car. Okay, so this is something belongs to that. Or let's say the average speed of my car. So these are the methods. So in classes there are two things. One is attributes, or you call it property, and another is the methods. So now up to this point it is clear. And one more point, that whenever you create any class, it has to be in the Pascal case. What is this Pascal case? Suppose I will type like this. This is Pascal case. So you see, first letter or of every word is in capital. This is known as Pascal case. This is just the way of writing. And when you create any functions or methods, it has to be in the snake case. For example, this is snake case. So you see, everything is in small, but when the word is completed, then you will put underscore, then another word underscore, another word underscore. So up to this point it is clear. So enough with this theoretical stuff. Let's begin and create our first class. So as we discussed, I am creating a class by the name, let's say, car. Okay, this C has to be small. You see, now I am creating a class by the name car. And first of all, I have to define my attributes. So I will say, let's say the color of my car is blue. Okay, and the model of my car is, let's say, sports model of my car. Up to this point it is clear. Now I will create my function. So we all know how to create function. Let's say calc average speed, and one more point, it has to be capital, right? Because we have to use the Pascal case for class. In this case we are using snake case. So def calculate the average speed. What we need as parameter is kilometer and time. Let's pass it for now because this is just for syntax preparation. And just pass it now. Trigger this. So now you have created your first class by the name car, which has attributes, that is color and model, and which also has function. Only one function you have created, that is the calc avg speed, which helps you in calculating the average speed, but you have to give the kilometer and the time. Make sense? Okay, now this is clear. Now let's understand what is this object. So as I said, object is an example of a class, is an instance of a class, whatever you say. So like data type is a class. So what are data types that we have covered so far? Strings, lists, tuple, dictionary, set. These are all class. But when you create its variable, it becomes an object. I mean, that is what we did. We all know that this is a list. And when we create its variable by the name L, this is an object, right? So when you create an object, it will become an instance of a class. That is what I was saying. Okay, so for example, if you type like in this example, we know that the car is class, right? So let's say you can create wagoner is equal to car. So it means, so when you type this, let's do it over here. So let's say I am creating like wagoner is equal to car, and you trigger this. You see why did it trigger? So now you have created an object that is wagoner, which belongs to the car class. I hope it is clear. So now if you type wagoner, you see it belongs to the car. And if you type car over here, it is a class. I will give you some more examples, then it will become much more easy to understand when we create our ATM project over here right now. Okay, but then there might be a question in your mind that if this is the way to create the class, okay, then in the case of a list, why we are not using list like this? 1 2 3. Ideally we should like write like this, because list is a class as we are saying so far, and L is an object that we are creating. Can I do this? Yes, you can. So technically what happened, you see now L is a list, we can see that. So you can just write L is equal to 1 2 3 as well. Why it is happening? Why it is happening? Because this is known as object literal. So there are the built-in functionality available within the Python. For example, this list class, which is already exist within the Python, you have not created this class explicitly. So for that, you can create the objects without mentioning their class name. So this is known as object literal. For example, if I create the string, let's call it Kamal. So we all know that this S is a string, but there is definitely, you can create it using str, then over here and type like this. So this will also be a string. So it's up to you using the predefined classes which already exist in Python in terms of their data types. Otherwise, you can create your own class. You can create your own functionality that you want to do. That is the major role of an actuary. You guys are all involved into the pricing, reserving, experience analysis, modeling. You get my point, right? So everything, the functionality that is available within your traditional softwares, you can replace them using the Python with the help of object oriented programming, by creating your own classes and by defining their own objects, by having their own methods. So let's take a look now. Now, if you remember in the entire course that we have done so far, we are confused between the difference between the functions and the methods, right? So like if we say, what is this? Is this a function or this is a method? Although in this entire video, I will be using the words interchangeably, but there is a major difference between the functions and methods. So what exactly is the major difference between functions and methods? So methods are the functions which are written inside of a class. Methods. Okay. So it means that this is the method because it is written inside of a class, and something which is not, and the function which is not written inside of a class will become just a normal function. So let's say I will give you one example. So I will create a list L object which belongs to a list class. Makes sense? Now if I check the length of this L, so you see this is 3. So this len is a function because it is not defined within a class. It is not defined within a class of a list. It can be used by other classes as well. For example, you type like x is equal to nvt, right? And you can check the length of this x as well. So now you see that this x belongs to a string class and I can access this same function. So it means the function is available for all, whereas method is only belong to that specific class. And if you remember, that is why we did this thing at the beginning. You see that this L object belongs to a list class which has a method upper, but this upper method only belongs to a string class. That is why I cannot access this. That is why it is written that list object has not this upper concept. Okay, so I hope that this is clear. The major difference between the methods and functions. So the function is written outside of a class and can be used by any object, right? But the method belongs to a class. I hope it is clear. Let's move forward and let's create a mini project, and then it will be super useful for you guys if it is getting confusing. Otherwise, you can just go back and watch this video again. I know it is a very complicated concept, but it is the most important learning in this entire Python module. So let's create one mini project ATM. Let's create the ATM machine I'm talking about, from which like we withdraw our money. Make sense? Automated teller machine, I think we call it. So in our machine, what we do usually, I will define, let's say, my pin and the balance amount. Make sense? And there are two things that I wanted to cover, that is init and self. So I will use this thing as well, and I will cover about the concept of init and self within this lecture, but a little bit later. So let's create our class by the name ATM. Okay, I have created my class. Wait a second, this TM will be small, right? Because this is a Pascal class. I mean, the class has to be in a Pascal case. So I will create a method def init. Within it, I will type self colon. Now, don't ask me right now what is this init and what is this self. That is something I will cover in just 4 or 5 minutes. So just bear with me. Okay, so I will define my pin. So I will type self dot pin is equal to, right now it is blank, let's say. Similarly, self dot balance is equal to 0. Done. And I will, let's say, within this, I will trigger one menu function as well. Menu method. And let's define this menu method. Menu method is, let's say, self colon pass. Just trigger this. So now we have created a simple sober class by the name ATM, which has the method by the name menu. Okay, so this is clear right now. So now let's understand what is this init. What is the use of this init? So let's create a heading and try to understand the concept of init. Okay, so init is a constructor, or you can say it's like a special method. Hence, the code within the init will automatically run whenever you create the object of that class. Okay, so what I just said, let's take an example. Let's create a VS Code based file over here. Open with VS Code. Okay, and let's call this file as example1. Let's call it create one file, and I will type ex1.py. Okay, this is the first example I'm creating. So I will type a class by the name ATM colon. I will create a underscore init underscore. Then within that I will type self colon. Then I will type, let's say, print hello. That's it. Okay, nothing else. Makes sense? This is just the one simple sober Python code I have created of 3 lines, where I have defined the ATM and this init. And let's close this. Okay, so I have created this VS Code by the name ex1. Now I can import this code within my another Python script which is going on over here. So let's say I will type from ex1 import ATM. From ex1, this is the name of my Python script. Import the class. The class I imported is ATM. So now if I trigger this, it has been triggered. And now let me create an object. Let's say SBI is equal to ATM. That is how we create an object, right? This is something I have covered over there as well, that how to create an object from a class. Where was it? Yeah, over here. You see, I created an object by the name Wagoner, which belongs to the list, which belongs to the car class. Similarly, I created an object named as SBI which belongs to the ATM class. Let's trigger this. And you see hello comes up. And if I check my this VS code that I wrote, I said print hello. So it means whenever you create the object of a class, whatever be the code that you have written within this init function or init method, it will automatically trigger. Okay, so that is the main logic of this init, or you call it constructor, and it has to be double underscore prior to that, double underscore after that. So now I hope it is clear to all of you guys. Okay, now the question is that what exactly is the use of this constructor? So sometimes things for which you should not be giving an option for the user to run. For example, when someone will create any app, and there are some configuration settings which are going on in the backend. As a user, you are not aware about that, but whenever you open that application, those settings will automatically get triggered. Okay, same concept over here, same concept, nothing else. Let's close this for now. And coming back to, so now we are able to understand about the concept of init, but our concept of self is still pending. That is fine, we will cover it in this session, but a little bit later. Up to this point it is clear. So now let's create this ATM function in a lot of detail. So I will create my class ATM and def underscore underscore init underscore underscore self. So self dot pin is currently blank, self dot balance is currently 0, and self dot menu is the function that I will trigger every single time whenever I will create the object. So I have to define my object, this method. So def menu, I will pass it on self, and let's say I will take the user input. I will use the input function, triple quotes, let's say this time, and I will type hello, how would you like to proceed? Enter 1 to create pin. I mean, that is what happened, right? If whenever you go to an ATM and put your ATM card, so I am creating it in such a way. Okay, enter 1 to create pin, enter 2 to deposit the money, enter 3 to withdraw the money. Make sense? Enter 4 to check balance, and enter 5 to exit. Make sense? I use triple quotes because I am using writing my lines in the different lines over here. Make sense? So I will first of all define my user input, and in which I am taking an input from a user whenever I will create the object of a class. Okay. So I will type if user input equal to 1. Why I am using this quote over there? Because input functions will technically give me the string. Otherwise, I can typecast it by writing int over there in such a way. We all are aware about this concept, right? But let's not make it a little bit complicated for you guys. So I am using this input. And that is why over here I am typing the quotes over there, because the answer will be a string. So if user input is 1, I will print, let's say, create the pin. Okay, copy this. Elif, not copy this, user input equal to 2, then I will type print, that is deposit. Make sense? Deposit. And let's copy this. Now paste it over there, paste it over there. 1 2 3 4 and then 5. Print, bye bye. So input is equal to 1, input is equal to 2, input is equal to 3, then I will withdraw, right? So I will type withdraw over there. And if input is 4, then I will check balance. Makes sense? So that's all I have created. It is super duper simple. Now let's trigger this. Done. Okay. So now let's create an object of this class and let's see what will happen. So let's create an object. Now see very carefully. Okay, I am creating an object. Let's say SBI, State Bank of India, ATM class. I am triggering. So now if I shift enter, so you see this box pop up automatically. How does that happen? So when you create an object, this will run only. But within this, right now you have not defined the pin. The balance is 0, but you are triggering the menu function, menu method within that. So now it will go to the menu method. And then you are saying that you are taking an input from a user by writing this thing. So now I have to give the answer. Let's say I will type 1. So you see create pin. 1 create pin. And if I trigger this thing, let's say again, I will type 4. You have to see check balance. I will trigger this thing again. Let's say 5. Bye bye. So that is what I have written over there. So I hope it is clear, right? I am creating this function in detail step by step, but up to this point it is clear to all of you. Makes sense? Super sorted. So now let's create a lot of methods within this class by the name ATM. Let's copy this and paste it over there. So up to this point we have written already whatever we want to do. Let's create the functions that we want whenever the person will put the input that we want him to do. So the first is, let's say, to create the pin. So let's say I am creating a function by the name create pin, creating a method or function. As I said, I am using interchangeably, but you know the difference. Within that I will type self. What is this self? We will cover it in the end. Next is self dot pin is equal to input, enter your pin. So basically when the person will enter 1, he will go to the create pin function, and obviously I will ask him that enter your pin. What is exactly your pin? Makes sense? Enter your pin. And then in the end I will say okay, pin set successfully. Makes sense? Super simple. Create one more function, that is, let's say, deposit. I will put self, and I will create, let's say, a temporary variable, because obviously whenever someone wants to deposit the money, I will definitely ask him what is your pin number, right? Whenever you want to deposit or withdraw the money. So temp, I will ask him enter your pin. Make sense? Enter your pin. And if self.pin equal to temp, when the pin is accurate, then I will say that amount is equal to integer input, enter the amount. Makes sense? I am obviously now I have to use int, because the amount I will enter will be in an integer way, right? And then in the end what will happen, that my self dot balance will be increased by the amount that I have deposited. So self dot balance is equal to self dot balance plus amount. Super sorted. Okay, otherwise if your pin is wrong, I will say that you have written the invalid pin. Make sense? Up to this point also it is clear. Now let's create withdraw function. Def withdraw self. Let's use this same concept over here. Copy, paste it over here. So I will use the again input, enter your pin. If the pin is equal to this, then I will say that amount will be enter, and enter the amount you want to withdraw. Super sorted. But now there is a catch. If amount is less than self dot balance, let's say you have only $100 in your bank account and you are typing I want to withdraw 150, it will not happen, right? So if you are withdrawing the money which is less than the self dot balance, okay, then self dot balance is equal to self dot balance minus amount. Let's say you want to withdraw 50 and in your account there is 200, so the remaining balance will be 150. Super sorted. Makes sense. Else you will type print in insufficient balance, and you will come out of this. Else if he or she put the wrong pin number, then you will type same thing, invalid pin. Make sense? So now last, that is to check balance. Check balance, put self again, colon, and this time again you will enter, let's copy this first of all. You will put your pin number, and if pin is equal to the accurate pin, then you will be able to see the accurate balance, right? Else print invalid pin. So temp is equal to input, enter your pin. If self pin is equal to temp, then print self dot balance, else print it will be the invalid pin. Wow. But there is one problem. When you trigger this, you have to define within this. When the person will put 1, it will only print create pin. You are not giving the any code through which that code will go to this function. So I have to write this thing within this over here as well. So I will type, if user input is equal to 1, then I want him to self dot create underscore pin. That is the function I have created, create underscore pin. I don't know, I don't need this print command over there, right? Elif, when person will put this, I will do self dot deposit. Make sense? Then it will go to the deposit function. If user will input the 3 which belongs to withdraw, then self dot withdraw function or method that I have created, this withdraw. And if the user put 4, then I want self dot check balance. My God, yes. Okay, so I hope that it is clear. Now I trigger this and it's done. So now let's create an object this time. Again, SBI is an object, ATM is my class. Let's trigger this. Now it is saying, what is your pin? Select 1 to enter pin. Let's say I will enter 1. Now you see it is asking me enter your pin, because when I press 1, it has triggered this create pin method. And within this create pin method, it is asking me to enter your pin. And when I will enter my pin, this thing will pop up. That pin has been set successfully. I will type 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see the pin has been set successfully. Up to this point, it is clear. Now you see when you create any kind of string and then you press dot, when you create any kind of an object and you press dot, then you see a lot of methods. The same concept will happen in this case. I will type SBI dot. Now press tab. So you see these are all the methods or the attributes that we have defined in this class by the name ATM. So this is an object. SBI is an object. Similarly, L is an object that we done at the beginning. L is an object. Dot. And then there are a lot of methods or the attributes, but there is no attribute by the name upper in case of a list class. But we have these functions. So let's say I will type deposit and now trigger this. You see, they are asking me about the pin number first of all, because you see in the deposit function, you will first of all ask for the pin number. I will type now 1, 2, 3, 4 because this is the correct pin. Now it will come over there. Enter the amount that you want to deposit. Let's say 10,000. I have deposited this amount. Okay, so now it is clear. But let's say I type as again this thing, enter the pin. Now I will put it wrong, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see invalid pin. Okay, so now I hope that you are able to make sense. So let's say now if I check my balance, check balance, trigger this, enter the pin 1, 2, 3, 4. You see the balance is 10,000 that we have deposited. I will type SBI dot withdraw, trigger this, enter your pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter the amount that you want to withdraw, 4,000. Done. You are now able to withdraw. So let's say now if I check my balance, check balance, trigger this, pin number 1, 2, 3, 4. The balance is 6,000 because 4,000 has been already withdrawn. But let's say this time I will withdraw again. Withdraw, enter the pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say I withdraw 50,000. It gives me that there is an insufficient balance. So you see how You have created your own class, your own object, and your own methods. This is technically the meaning of object oriented programming. Okay, now I have created only one object, that is SBI. I can create endless number of objects. Let's say I will type HDFC is equal to ATM, trigger this. Now enter. How would you like to? So I will type, let's say 1. Let's create the pin. This time let's say the pin is 2345. This is the pin I'm creating for HDFC. Okay, so the pin has been set successfully. Again, let's deposit some money in this HDFC account. 2345 is the pin. Let's say I am depositing 20,000 in this bank account. Done. Let's check the balance. HDFC dot check balance. Trigger this. What is your pin? 2345. And you see the balance is 20,000. Make sense? So we have learned how to access their methods or functions. To access their attributes, you don't have to put these brackets at the end. For example, if I want to check the balance of SBI, you see 6,000. Balance of my HDFC, this is 20,000. Because when we created the class, this pin and balance are the attributes. These are not the functions or methods. So if you want to access them, you don't have to put the small brackets at the end in case of them. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Although you can check the pin number as well. For example, HDFC dot pin, and you can access this 2345. But in reality, you can hide them as well, which is like super duper advanced. Let me not go into that concept right now. Okay, so there is a concept of public key, private key, through which you can access some of the attributes, but some of the attributes you cannot access them. Right? So we are able to understand up to this point. Now, the last thing for today's session. What exactly is this self? Like, we are super duper confused with this self concept. We are writing so much self everywhere. What is this self over here? Self.pin, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times. So let's understand about the concept of self. So self is also an object. Let's see an example and let's try to check the ID of self. Let me copy paste some code over here for you guys. Created a ATM class, defining the constructor over here, self.pin.balance. But over here, I am printing one ID of this self just to identify what is this self. Okay, and then just triggering this menu function and simple sober thing that we did earlier. Done. Let's create the object by the name SBI and trigger this. So you see it has, okay, ATM, this time it is capital T. So you see it has given me an ID over here, 21799, whatever. This is the ID that I have over here. Makes sense? Similarly, if I want to check the ID, I will just type ID SBI and you can see both of the IDs are same. Okay. ID is basically where your self is stored within the Python memory itself. So ID of a self, what exactly is self? In last it is saying 872. Just remember this thing. So it means that technically the SBI is self. Why? Because I try to find the ID of self, which is this. And then I am saying what is the ID of SBI, which is this. So it means the SBI is self, which means the self is an object. Why? Because SBI is an object. I hope it is clear. Let me give you one more example. Let's say I am creating one more object by the name HDFC and trigger this. And you see in this case 568 in the end, or you remember, then it is fine. This is the ID of a self. And if I try to find the ID of HDFC object, again it is same. Although the ID of HDFC and SBI will be different because obviously you have created different objects, although it is from a same class, but these are the different objects. But technically this self is itself an object. Okay, so I hope now it is clear to you what exactly is this, that both the IDs are same, but the object self is an object. So you see, like self is like the object with which you are working currently is self. But while creating any method, you are giving self in brackets. Why? Let's say if I write a code, and within that code, let me try to remove the self. And I will, let's say, copy this code that we created, this one, okay, and paste it over here. And now from this code, I have removed, when I created this pin, I have not put the self over here. But in all other cases, I have put the self. But in case of a create pin, I have not put the self. Make clear? Is it clear? Now let's trigger this. It has been triggered. Let's create the object this time. SBI is equal to this ATM, trigger this. And let's say if I type 1. So now you see it gives me an error. It is saying that ATM.createPin takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Okay. But we have not given any argument. It is saying that but 1 was given. We have not given any argument. We just type SBI is equal to ATM and ultimately calling the SBI.createPin because we put 1 as the value, which means that it will go to the createPin function. Makes sense? The reason is whenever you type any object name dot the method, by default you have to give an input in the bracket which will itself be the object. I repeat, whenever you create any object name dot method, which is basically object name, which is SBI dot method, that is this create pin, and you trigger this. So by default Python will assume that within this bracket the object name is also present. Obviously I cannot type, when I am creating the code, I cannot type the SBI over there, I cannot type SBI over there because I don't know next time I am creating any other object name which is HDFC, ICICI, Axis, etc. Make sense? That is why to solve this problem we will always type self, and whenever you create any specific object, that self will be assigned to that object. I hope now it is clear. Okay, so this is the concept of these things. So just to revise quickly what we have covered about the strings, lists, then what exactly is the classes, then the attributes, about the Pascal case, snake case, attributes, methods or functions, object, how to create the object, then create the small mini project. Then we have learned about the difference between functions and methods, the init constructor, about the self. You don't have to write anything. The Python scripts that you will find below this video are more than sufficient, and I have written it in a lot of detail. Okay, so I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video with the amazing projects. Bye.